A very warm good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, my heartfelt gratitude to Lilong Hauribi College and Sponsoring Institute for giving me this wonderful opportunity today to share some thoughts on the importance and need to integrating technical and vocational education training in higher education sector. Various transformative reforms in higher education are taken up by UGC, which we try to adopt and implement in the higher education in the state within the vision of National Education Policy 2020. These quality initiatives are vital for the overhauling and re-energizing of the higher education institutions in the state. To mention a few of the initiatives will be the Learning Outcome Curriculum Framework, the university industrial linkages through the establishment of community colleges, opening of courses like VVOC, Deen Dayal Upadhyay Kaushal Kendra, then to life skills, where focus is given on communication skills, on professional skills, leadership, entrepreneurship skills, etc. The faculty development program, especially for training teachers, leadership and management training for administrators, and focus on research, especially the transdisciplinary research, against to sort of empower the national development and entrepreneurship, accreditation, giving focus and untiring efforts to create conducive environment for the higher education institutions to go for accreditation. We also have the National Higher Education Quality Framework, which is in sync with the National Skills Qualifications Framework. This is basically again to ease the integration of vocational educations into higher education. Then academic bank of credits, the multiple entry, multiple exit in academic programs, apprenticeship, internship, embedded degree program, then guidelines for multidisciplinary institutions, then guidelines for mentoring of teachers, etc. So all these initiatives taken up by UGC, we try to follow and implement in the state also. I would like to spend some time on this slide. It will take us and try to understand the trends and the concerns in the current scenario in skills development. India within the Asia-Pacific region is renowned for its size, diversity and complexity, whether it be geographical, socio-economic, cultural, political or development, all of which impact on every aspect of life, including labor force, employment, education and training. Asia's economies have achieved remarkable growth rates. Asia also faces demographic challenges. Some countries have a predominantly working age population, while there are economies that will be confronted with an aging, large elder population. The case of the Asian giants, the People's Republic of China and India, is significant. Together, they represent almost 36% of the world's population. They are witnessing large-scale migration to urban areas and further fueled for further employment opportunities and higher standards of living. So together with informal employment in agriculture, the proportion of informal employment significantly increases in India. So skill development for the informal sector presents specific challenges to the governments. So there is a need to progress towards aligning skill development strategies with socio-economic goals, skill developments for employability with stresses on practical, technical and vocational rather than largely academic knowledge, skills and understandings, which we referred as technical and vocational education and training. So this includes apprenticeship training, vocational education, industrial arts, technical education, technological vocational education, occupational education, vocational educations and training, etc. It refers to education and training that prepare people for gainful employment. It takes place either in formal schools, from primary to higher secondary or post-secondary tertiary, that is a higher education sector, or either in community colleges, in technical colleges, or informally by means of training in the workplace by distance learning. So in most developing countries, such skills development for employability occurs through informal or non-formal means rather than formal institutions. So there needs a planned strategies for skill development for the technical and vocational educations and training subjects in secondary and post-secondary learning centers. That's why we are relevant today when we talk about sort of expanding the technical vocational education and training to higher education sector. And I would also like to mention here that as I was going through some of the studies, that the technical and vocational education and training experienced almost a kind of a virtual disappearance from the international aids and fundings in the 1980s, when the World Bank radically shifted its policy from the technical vocational education training to primary education. But ladies and gentlemen, today, the technical vocational education and training is back on global education agenda, again partly because of the reaction to the emerging skills divide, with the least developed countries falling further behind. So technical and the vocational education training is regarded as one of the interventions to achieving relevant and high quality education for all, education for sustainable development and millennium development goals, and also part of lifelong learning agenda. There are issues, concerns and challenges regarding the technical vocational education and training. So investing in this field is important to promote social, economic and ecological development. Many countries share macroeconomic characteristics like macroeconomic stability, sustained growth in productivity, significant investment in technology, continued investment in human resources development, but they have not yet experienced similar growth trajectories which we have seen in countries of Asia Pacific region like Singapore, Hong Kong, People's Republic of China and Republic of Korea, etc. So there is an importance for a specific government guidance, planning, policies and interventions in this sector. We all know that the markets alone cannot in a timely manner coordinate education and training for people so that the skilled workers are available in the labor market when the employees need them. Hence, there is a need to support government in skill development, planning and policy formulation aligned with the socio-economic development. It is worth to see the success stories from Singapore, and other nations can use Singapore as an example to assist them in designing their skills development and catch-up strategies as they looked very closely at where they wanted to go, which sectors they wanted to focus, and what assets they had as a nation. So they then used off-the-shelf education, skills development, and industrial promotion policies, which they adapted in their national context to very rapidly catch up with more developed countries. And we also know that public-private partnerships and financing on skill development is also important, and the strengthening of the PPPs would also be helpful for developing skills for the innovation and technology sectors. The National Vocational Qualification Frameworks and Sector Skills Council again is underpinned, ladies and gentlemen, by the idea that all qualifications can and should be expressed in terms of outcomes without a prescribed learning pathway. So the underlying motive is the need to strengthen links between education, training and the labor market, the need to ease the process of labor mobility across employment sectors, regions and countries, including lifelong education and training, recognizing prior learning experiences and credits, setting standards based on learning outcomes, facilitating quality assurance, and improving the perceived status of technical and vocational education. I would also like to focus on green growth and skills development, employability, which is an in-thing. At the international level, there is a clear linkages between technical and vocational educations with environmental conservation and sustainable development. So the Asia Business Report 2009, way back in 2009, predicts that the number of green jobs, it's a kind of a new term, for most of us. It's related to development, manufacture, and operation of renewable energy generating equipments, green accounting, carbon trading, and carbon auditing, created by 2030 could reach 100 million worldwide, which is estimated at 2% of the future workforce. So some of these green jobs will be new jobs, while others will substitute our existing jobs. Potentially, Asia could have 50 million such green jobs, and many jobs in the existing industries would require green skills, as manufacturing industries may change their production process or develop green products. So potentially, expanded production capacity along with supply chains and new servicing need would indicate that green skills will become an essential part of the future. So there lies a great responsibility to groom our youth, our people, our workers in these new skills, and this is something which the higher education sector should look into. It is also vital to understand vocationalization of education and the reorientation of skill development for employability through lifelong learning. Lifelong learning has emerged as one of the keys to improving the quality of life in the 21st century. Lifelong learning goes beyond formal education and training to include skill development. So this is an umbrella term to describe the ways in which individuals continue to learn and acquire skills and competencies which influence employment and earning potential. So vocationalization, ladies and gentlemen, of secondary and higher education provides a foundation for lifelong learning in skills development for employability. Previously, the notion of vocationalization was only related to inclusion of vocational content into the general education programs or to pre-vocational or the pre-technical education programs. But today, the current trends are to new vocationalization that also includes vocational or technical education programs that prepare participants for direct entry into specific occupations. So the change is away from an education driven to a functional model of skills development at the secondary and post-secondary tertiary level. So this is again one area where we need to study and learn and understand in context with the higher education sector. At the tertiary level, that is the higher education sector, there has been a transformation for higher education in the past 2 decades as a result of massification of higher education. The numbers of tertiary students have further increased by 25% in India between 2005 to 2009. So as students' numbers have risen dramatically and increasing emphasis is being placed on skills development for employability, which has resulted in the vocationalization of higher education. In terms of development skills for employability through the lifelong learning framework, formal learning is getting more and more inclusive of informal and non-formal learning to vocationalize education by devising most effective ways in which education institutions can do best prepare learners for the world of work and for a smooth transition from educational institutions into the world of work. So skill development for employability and inclusion has clearly shown that for individuals with low skills levels, Having the opportunity to acquire skills for employability at strategic points throughout their lives is a crucial factor in improving their prospects for gaining employment and to have a secure income, and thus help us in combat poverty and improving the quality of life for themselves and their families. So when higher education institutions use their expertise to work with schools and act as their advocates, progress can be made in combating poverty, raising the basic skills levels of both children, youths, and people and adults by expanding opportunities for youth and other marginalized groups and for poverty alleviations and equity through enhancing the level of skills among vulnerable groups also. Focus is also on the soft skills, including values and ethics as parts of skills development for employability. So vocationalization of secondary and higher education has clearly shown that at present the vocational education is more school-oriented, especially at the upper secondary level, which is again mainly offered by the government schools. So change in the intercapacity is still slow, and the most courses are again school-based. So India is amongst the countries with the lowest proportion of trained youth. 80% of new entrants to the workforce having no opportunity for skills training. So the government has taken due recognition of the skill gaps and plans to take new initiatives for bridging them. We have the national policy on skill development that provides a direction for skill development in the country. So there is a need for diversifying the post-secondary technical and vocational education as the demand for enrollment at the post-secondary and tertiary levels has increased dramatically in the past couple of years. I go to the next slide. The main challenge is to link higher education with the changing needs and opportunities of contemporary society and the economy. This is seen as an increasingly important issue by the universities and the policymakers. Creating a fruitful and dynamic partnership between higher education and society at large has become one of the basic missions of the universities. We have seen some trends that are related to the challenge of the knowledge economy, like the development of interdisciplinary links across traditional academic disciplines, blurring the boundaries and developing new approaches towards knowledge production. Development of employability skills that are required for all sectors of the economy, which can be also seen as a priority for both vocational and higher education, and lifelong learning as a way of responding to rapid knowledge development and market change. So goal of tertiary education must be sustainable and provide long-term, usable professional education. Vocational qualifications should provide access to university education. University education for vocational education teachers is also required, which should include occupational domains and pedagogical qualifications. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, meeting the challenges of 4 E's: education, employability, employment, and entrepreneurship. India is going through 5 labor market transitions, from farm to non-farm, from rural to urban, from unorganized to organized, from subsistence self-employment to decent wage employment, and from school to work. So India population has turned into a desirable demographic dividend. Study shows that 58% of India's youth suffer some degree of skill deprivation and employability. And unemployability is a bigger issue than unemployment. So India must undertake reforms of the 4 E's: the education, the employability, the employment, and the entrepreneurship, to address sustainable poverty reduction. And one such focus area will be to strengthen the technical and vocational educations in the higher education sector. Different ways of implementing vocationalization include incorporation of a more vocationally oriented content and the provision of work-based learning and work experience, the delivering of cross-faculty courses and establishing interdisciplinary research centers to overcome a segmented approach to knowledge development and acquisition, development of new programs more oriented to market needs, inclusion of employability, enhancing activities that are not related to content teaching, teaching towards attributes acknowledged by employers, recognition of prior learning for both vocational and higher education programs with stress on lifelong learning, arrangement for the articulation and provision of enabling or bridging courses or those lacking knowledge and skills for the higher education programs, interinstitutional collaborative arrangements between universities and the colleges. In 2012, the Government of India, taking note of the requirement of the skill development among students, launched the National Vocational Education Qualification Framework. In 2013, the NVEQF was assimilated into National Skills Qualification Framework. Under the NSQF, many qualification packs and job roles are being developed by various sector skills council. National occupation standards are also developed through a series of workshops and conferences. Assessment mechanism has also been developed by the sector skills councils in alignment with the needs of the local industries. Vocational education started way back from 2012-13 onwards under the initiative of the Ministry of Human Resource Development, set up 200 community colleges nationwide on pilot basis. In 2014, UGC has implemented the scheme of community colleges by sharing infrastructure and resources with existing colleges. In Manipur too, community colleges were established on the 12th and 13th June 2014 under the Government of Manipur Directorate at Churachandpur Community College and Dhanamandjari Community College. As per the UGC guidelines, the Higher Education Department sketches the vocational education in the higher education in the following three aspects. First, it's the add-on course, which is a 6-month certificate, 1-year diploma in addition to the ongoing general undergrads courses, as the government is implementing vocationalization of higher education under RUSA scheme in all the 40 government colleges, and this scheme is being implemented in partnership with 13 industry partners. Second, we have the community colleges, which is up to 2 years advanced diploma, 3 years VVOC degree with exit points at the end of each year, and DDU Koshal centers up to the PG level in vocational education under the NSQF. These are being implemented by the colleges under the UGC schemes. Then, of course, integrating vocational education into mainstream educations under the CVCS, which is, of course, now upgraded to LOCS. But this is not yet completely adopted, as the affiliating Manipur universities is yet to finalize development of the syllabus and curricula to be adopted in the affiliating colleges. Why do we need integrating vocational education into mainstream education? So we know that only 5% of the Indian workforce in the age group of 19 to 24 received formal vocational education and training. And if we compare this data with the other countries, we know that we are far, far behind. So there is an urgent need to integrate vocational education into mainstream general education in the formal education sector in tune with the National Education Policy 2020. Department of University and Higher Education Government of Manipur has initiated certain requirements of the colleges under the following aspects in terms of syllabus and curriculum, in terms of high level of quality and safety standards during training, then competency-based training, then more number of courses aligned with the NSQF and courses with various course durations and infrastructure development, etc. Transforming existing academic infrastructure through enhancement of budget requirements, then well-equipped laboratories, then equipment of industrial standards, well-established library, maintenance of safety standards, green buildings, workshed for training and production, increased number of internship and placement facilities. And also there's also a need to see how the vocational education is performing at the school level. Because pre-vocational exposure activities which is happening between the classes of 6 to 8 is also quite important and vital. They need to emphasize on the fun-based kind of activities, taking children to informal internship by sending to the local persons who are well known for professions or job roles. Pre-vocational exposure shall play a very vital role, and there is also a need for changing the mindset of the parents, because students also need to understand and see in reality what people are earning their livelihoods. We also shall create quality universities and colleges to develop good, thoughtful, well-rounded, creative individuals, youths who are to study one or more specialized area of interest at a very deep level. Then also to develop character, ethical, constitutional values, intellectual curiosity, scientific temper, creativity, and spirit of service, to develop capabilities across a range of disciplines, including sciences, social sciences, arts, humanities, languages, professional, technical, and vocational subjects, and also encourage academic branding for personal accomplishment, enlightenment, constructive public engagement, and productive contribution to the society, to prepare more meaningful, satisfying lives, work roles, and hence enable economic independence, developing holistic individuals, and identifying set of skills and values incorporated at each stage of learning, and branding with quality, competency, and employability. At a societal level, we are also focusing to have a kind of an enlightened, socially conscious, knowledgeable, and skilled nation that can find and implement robust solutions to its own problems, basis for knowledge creations and innovations, and hence contributing to a growing national economy, and a quality higher education which is more than creation of greater opportunities for individual employment. There are key changes happening in higher education, setting up of larger multidisciplinary colleges, more multidisciplinary undergraduate education system, faculty and institutional autonomy, revamping curriculum, pedagogy, assessment, and student support for enhanced student experiences, and reaffirming integrity of faculty and institutional leadership positions through merit appointments and career progression based on teaching, research, and service. It is not the first time that we are talking about vocational education. So why the earlier vocational education failed? We know that the vocational education which was introduced earlier was basically in the class 9 and class 12 only, and that was basically for certain targeted populations, for the dropouts only. So there was no pathways, no vertical mobility or horizontal, could not go up further for further studies. So vocational education was also treated as an inferior education compared to mainstream education. So keeping all these aspects in mind, the National Education Policy 2020 aims to overcome the social status and hierarchy associated with reimagining vocational educations. In order to promote vocational education, NEP kept a very ambitious target for training 50% of students in vocational education by the end of 2025. We are now in 2022. So almost 3 years down the line, by 2025, we have to completely train 50% of our students in vocational education. So this is a very, very ambitious target. Then the number of students in vocational education to be considered while arriving at the gross enrollment ratio. Then vocational education to be integrated in all the secondary schools and higher educational institutions in a phase-wise manner over the next 10 years. then beginning with vocational exposure at the early age from class 6 to class 8, then quality vocational education in middle and secondary education between class 9 to 12, and to smoothly continue vocational education into higher education. So what shall we do? We need to establish skill hubs, skill labs in a hub and spoke models. We need to train the trainers. We need to identify collaborations. And the purpose of collaborations again is basically creating opportunities for students to go for industrial visit and practical exposure, giving opportunities of hands-on training, interaction with the field experts, constant dialogues with industry people, industry and academia linkages. We need to do signing of MOUs. An MOU should contain the training facilities, internship and placement facilities, research and development facilities, syllabus and curriculum designing, review and improve syllabus, sharing infrastructure and manpower, contributing workshop facilities, placements, etc. And there is an important role to be played by teacher in higher education in understanding and studying the skill gap analysis to identify job roles, identify industry requirements, develop curriculum and syllabus based on the analysis, develop qualification packs, meet industry people regularly, engage trainers, observe dynamics of industry with latest scientific inventions, and to review syllabus accordingly. Of course, we need to focus on lok vidya. We can think of the university and higher education departments to constitute state committees to study and understand the rich cultural heritage of the state and to integrate these traditional skills in the higher education sector. Then the university and higher education departments shall also facilitate colleges in mapping vocational job roles offered in schools to the VVoc and other vocational courses offered at higher education institutions. A team of teachers may be mobilized to conduct survey and mapping, encouraging more higher educational institutions to offer vocational degrees and skill-based courses. Need alignment of skill courses in the colleges with those in the higher secondary schools. A group of teachers may be engaged to conduct analysis and mapping. So there lies a great importance of a maximum awareness to be spread across all stakeholders. And this faculty development program, which we are having today in your college, is perhaps one such series of programs that needs to be organized often more in the other institutions also. And we also need to change the societal stigma and mindset on the inferiority of vocational education vis-a-vis the mainstream education. We need to have more training of trainers, and you all are part of this great event today. And we also need to have an understanding of the recognition of the prior learning, which is based on NSQL. So, ladies and gentlemen, what do we have towards our future? We need to have the employment reform, matching and connecting supply to demand. Employability reform, improving supply for employability. Education reform, creating a pipeline of educated and skilled workers. Entrepreneurship reform, to create a vibrant entrepreneurial culture in education. Strengthening our technical and vocational education system. We need to do fostering knowledge intensity through workplace training, developing local skills ecosystems, then integrating skills for green growth and greening economies, ensuring synergy between priority investments and skills development, lifelong learning for a dynamic education and training system, skills for inclusive and sustainable growth, addressing skills mismatch calls for not just upskilling, but also right skilling, which is very, very important and essential. Strengthening the skills and workforce development system, strengthening foundational skills and direct measurement of skills, and mainstreaming soft skills into technical and vocational education training for improved productivity, and integrating employment services into skills training. Out of roughly 29 lakhs population of Manipur, More than 6 lakhs educated youth, including 2 lakhs women, are seeking employment at present. Thousands of graduates pass out from higher educational institutions, but industry requirements are not yet fulfilled. So the Department of University and Higher Education Government of Manipur is always striving for bridging this gap by adopting a new system of higher education in the state where skill development courses are judicially integrated. And teachers would play the pivotal role in this challenging task. And I hope, ladies and gentlemen, that this faculty development program will definitely enhance knowledge in the field of integrating skills in higher technical and education. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.